Welcome back. I am joined by a very special guest this morning. I am here with Kristen King. She's a manager at the Children's Hospital of Savannah at Memorial Health. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, with summer fast approaching. It's Memorial Day weekend right now, and we know that there's an increased risk during the summer months for a lot of different kinds of accidents that children can be involved with. Can you talk to folks about what parents really want to look out for and be mindful of as the weather heats up?
Oh, sure. Well, especially this weekend, there'll be lots of parties, maybe trips to the beach. So it's really helpful when you're thinking about safety just to think ahead a little bit, what your family plan is, and include the kids in talking about it as you're preparing. I always recommend that people take a little go bag, so having a Ziploc bag with little bug wipes, sunscreen, hand wipes, things that a little first aid kit, just because you never know, something that you can tuck in a backpack or your beach bag, to just really plan ahead. So depending on where you're going, that's really, you have to think about the safety factors around that. So making sure kids stay hydrated, that there's water watchers if you're at the beach or the pool, thinking about securing the car seats. If you have extra riders, how are you going to safely transport them? So really just thinking big picture and making the steps to really keep them safe.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of what you do is helping, talk about safety with children, helping them to understand. So for parents who are maybe, sending their kids off to a summer camp, maybe they're going to be at, a summer camp where they're swimming during the day, just where they need to be mindful also of their own safety in addition to whoever is watching them. What do you recommend for parents? What kind of conversations should they be having with their children about safety as we enter the summer months?
If you're thinking about going off to camp, being real with your kids about where their swim level is, because that is something often we hear they're going to have to take a swim test. So talk about what that means. And as your kids aren't swimmers or are going to learn to swim, it's just really important for them to kind of know what kinds of things that they'll be needing to be tested on. So we always have swimmers are also learning survival skills. So they need to learn where to get themselves into a pool, what they should be wearing before they're getting into the pool or water. They're going to also learn how to float, how to really move themselves through the water, how to get into the water and then be able to pop out independently and be able to tread water. So those are all kinds of skills that determine, especially at camp or at a pool, whether will have access to the deep end. So I have conversations with my kids as they were growing up too about what that looks like and kind of what are the things that we're still working on that may make it so that they're in the shallow end, because sometimes it just feels like a big deal to be able to either swim out to a dock or to be able to be in the deep end of the pool.
I know that with that, we are talking a lot about life vest safety and why that's so important.
It's really important to model wearing appropriate fitting life jackets and making sure they're on before we're really motoring through the water. Talking to kids about as they get older, showing them to follow the tide, if they're down at Tybee at the beach, to be looking for signs of currents and what does that look like, and to really recognize when it's unsafe to swim. I know as hurricane season hits, sometimes people are like, oh, it's a great time to go to the beach, but we also know that there's higher risk factors. So really be planning ahead, but also having conversations with kids about why we're not going to the beach today or why it wouldn't be a good idea to go out in the boat. As kids get older and they are a little bit more independent, they are at risk for higher drownings in open water, so those riverways and the beach.
And I know helmets are something that we've been talking a lot about recently, especially as we see more kids heading out on their bikes this summer and on those ATVs and other fun activities like that. What is the most important thing to understand about why you want to be talking to your kids about helmet safety and not taking it off at any point once they get out there with their friends or anything of that nature?
Well, kids should know if they actually aren't familiar with the bikes to really make sure that they have an adult who's teaching them how to use the equipment. They have to be at an age that's appropriate to be riding. And I know our doctors will always recommend a dirt bike over an ATV because it's not as heavy. Of course, as long as kids are riding safely and learning the risks, then using different motor vehicles can be safe. So you just want to know your child, look at the age, and ask the experts where you're purchasing the equipment, what should the child be wearing, and engage them in the conversation. We see a lot of kids that need to be wearing helmets. With ATV, sometimes we'll hear kids say, well, it was too hot. And so we really need to make sure kids are prepared when they're biking or using an ATV, thinking about the heat especially as well, because you maybe would go out early in the morning, or you'd have to change your schedule that may be a little bit different than the winter, just to stay safe and comfortable and enjoy.
I know as it heats up, another huge concern is the heat itself and how quickly children can overheat. I know that, hot cars are a concern, in addition to multiple other things like keeping your children properly hydrated when they're playing summer sports. So what advice do you have for parents about being conscientious about how heat can impact children?
Yeah, so pets and kids can't be left in the car. It's usually 20 degrees hotter in the car, and like you mentioned, kids heat up and cool down at a different rate than adults. So always having water on hand. I usually will keep a cooler. If I'm going out for a walk in the morning or with the kids, I'll put an extra thing of water in a cooler in the trunk. So I just try and think ahead just in case, you may decide to be out a little bit longer, or think a time of day. So I usually try to also plan on what the kids' routines are, whatever those routines that were at school or at daycare. If you can implement those at home, that often really helps parents sticking with somewhat of a routine to really have a fun summer.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here with us this morning.
I appreciate it.